My guess would be it was either Wayne's or Scott's idea. And this ties in with how I first came on board with the band in 1999 when they debuted the Soft Bulletin material at South by Southwest, and this new way of them playing live where Steven was no longer playing drums live and you had videos of him playing drums, and those were pre-recorded along with, some of the other elements from the record. It was a very distinct line in the sand of this is a new Flaming Lips. To me, the Embryonic show was a continuation of what had gradually been built up from Soft Bulletin onwards. So I just thought, hey, it's going to be Austin people and it's a free show and there are other cool bands on the bill and, they'll probably be stoned and drunk and whatever, and if there's going to be an audience that'll be able to hear this stuff once and be on board with it, it would be this one. It didn't really turn out quite that way, but I know we rehearsed a bunch at Pink Floor, but we weren't ready to do the shows by the time we got to Austin, but we had to go to Austin at the beginning of the week because Derek had promotional things to do with the Academy of Contemporary Music at the University of Central Oklahoma, and there was a weird movie that Wayne and George had put together called A Year in the Life of Wayne's Phone that was all just stuff that he'd filmed on his phone, and they put it together in this just mind fuck kind of way, like stacking three things on top of each other at all times. So that was shown a couple times and Wayne had to do promo for that. So we had to go to Austin, but we were looking for a place to do more rehearsal, and I just reached out to Chris, aka Frenchie, who I'd actually lived with in Austin when I was in 16 Deluxe. And he was cool enough to let us use his studio free of charge. And I do remember it being a little scattered in that we would rehearse, say, Look, the Sun is Rising, and then Are You a Hypnotist? And I kept thinking, if we would focus on one or the other, that would be great, but I guess that wouldn't be the Flaming Lips way, now would it?
Now, tomorrow night's going to be very interesting. The Flaming Lips will perform music you've never heard before because it's all new material on their album that's due out in April. That's tomorrow night.
That day, there was a fair amount of nervousness because we'd set up everything in a warehouse once, okay, this is gonna work. But as far as to set it up, under the gun of needing it to be ready in time to go on stage, hadn't done that yet. Plus, some of the songs weren't figured out before we went to Austin. So because the song The Terror fades out on the record, we hadn't figured out what the ending for that was going to be. And I remember just the moment before going on stage, it was oh, we'll just wing it. And I don't remember if the ending was a complete train wreck or not. I didn't think You Are Alone worked just because the timing of that kind of broken loop of Stevens, I just couldn't do it in that fashion and have it be smooth enough, that everybody else could play along to. Some things like lighting cues and video cues were kind of being discussed in our little dressing room trailer, and we're hoping that's all gonna go okay. But there was also a lot of excitement of, this is a definitive next step. And it was kind of an everything day because there was a lot of positivity, there was a lot of nervousness. I don't know. For me, listening to a record and seeing a band live are two very different things. And there are things that for me are perfectly acceptable on a record if I'm just sitting listening that, something like that long extended middle section of You Lust where you can really just get hypnotized by it and drawn into it. But live, it's going to be different because you're in a room with a bunch of other people, there's other stimulus going on, and so I think sometimes it's better to keep things shorter and more succinct. I think we felt it was too long. I I do remember wishing that we could have had one more day to practice and really tighten up the last few little bolts that were kind of loose. But at the same time, sometimes I think train wrecks can be great as long as it's one moment and not an entire show. I'm glad that different people had different opinions of it. Some of my friends that I talked to afterwards thought that it was really cool that we had done that, just gone out and played a whole hour's worth of stuff people weren't familiar with and didn't do the space bubble. And I don't think we did confetti at all then. I know as we got into touring, I know we started doing like black confetti, but I think at that one we just had no confetti. We didn't have the dancers on stage. It was just doing different stuff. And then having a couple other friends, I was like, this was the night that like I wanted to hear Do You Realize and She Don't Use Jelly. So the reviews after the fact were pretty scathing. I remember seeing them, you know, in the weeks afterwards, and I just thought some of them were hilarious. You know, they were really craftily written, and the people were very upset at what we had done. But I think it was great. I'm glad we did it.